In today's episode of Getting Geeky with Gamerleaf, I sit down with Wes to talk all about Legends of Novus, and afterwards we'll dive into Kickstarter Corner. This episode is powered by The Great Nameless, a game of divine might and cosmic horror. Sibling gods declare war on each other while their mindless progenitor threatens to destroy all of creation. 1 to 4 players. To find out more, go back and listen to the episode just before this one in your podcast catcher's feed, and then back it before Sunday, the 31st of March. This episode is powered by Heroes and Treasure Darkness and Light campaign. The popular Heroes and Treasure family RPG expands with new maps, enemies, and treasures. Play it with kids 4 years old and up, even teens. It's a game we'd like to get to the table when we bring back Rolling with the Leafs. It'll be on Kickstarter through, get this, today at 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. So if you want to bring your kids your love of role-playing games, definitely don't dilly-dally and check out Heroes and Treasure Darkness and Light campaign. Since we chatted last, they surpassed their funding goal, which is awesome. You don't want to miss out on all the fun? Well, like I said before, don't dilly-dally as the project only goes through 7 a.m. this morning Mountain Time. So, if you're catching this really late at night when we release it or early in the morning, stop what you're doing right now and back Heroes and Treasure Darkness and Light campaign. This episode is powered by 60 Second Chef. Quick to learn, easy to play, and super fun. Plus, it'll help us get veggies in front of our kids on the tabletop. Who said they had to be edible? Want to know more? Go listen to my interview with one of the designers now. Episode 235, Wishlist Wednesday on Saturday, 60 Second Chef. It'll be on Kickstarter through Friday the 22nd of March, so check out 60 Second Chef now. This episode is powered by Kyle Cottonbrook and his character casket. It's multiple accessories all in one kit. Affordable prices, and it's convenient for you. Think of a corpse for your dice and minis. It's on Kickstarter through Monday the 15th of April. This episode of Getting Geeky with Gamerleaf is proudly powered by Braden's World, makers of Heroes of History card game. Sam, the game's creator, was on with us during episode 235, Wishlist Wednesday, Heroes of History Take 2, to talk about his game. And after we got our copy, we are really excited to get started. It's the only game on the market where you can have Norse heroes fight American generals in a Minotaur's lair, which I can't wait to try out. The new set of Glorious Greeks and Vicious Vikings is out now. For listeners of the show, you can get a 10% rebate by emailing Sam, which will leave the link in the show notes, with a copy of your receipt, and he'll get you 10% off. And the first 10 listeners to leave an Amazon or eBay review will get you a 5% rebate by doing the same. Visit bradensworld.com and learn more about how you can order Iron Flanks versus Dragon Boat Raiders, as well as the beginner set Midnight Riders versus Echoes of the Plains. Heroes of History. Do you have what it takes to be a hero? This episode is powered by Solar Flare Games and their latest Robotech Crisis Point, which is a 2-player head-to-head card game. Strategy, tactics, area control, bluffing, and hand management all come into play in this dynamic and deep game of alien versus human in a battle of wits and courage. Will you save humanity or utterly destroy it? If you're up to the challenge, rush on over and pre-order Robotech Crisis Point today. Pre-orders will run through May unless they sell out, so don't dilly-dally. While you wait, you can check out Solar Flare's other Robotech game and or watch Robotech anime on Amazon Prime, possibly Netflix too.
Getting Geeky with Gamerleaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamerleaf.
The world of Novus is calling for help. Its people in desperate need of courageous heroes and adventurers to fight back against the dangerous animals and creatures that are ravaging the land. Only now, over a century after the devastating magical maelstrom changed the realm forever, are true champions emerging from the ranks of brave souls trying to protect the lands. In Legends of Novus, you are one of those champions. Cain, Knight of Exire. Chandril, Priestess of Braille. Beric, Druid of Vey. Davra, Wizard of Asa. Or Vin, Shadow of Drakkar. Let your story be told. You will travel an open concept world, free to move and explore different locations and cities as you wish. Experience special events, earn new skills, acquire powerful items, and learn advanced abilities during your quest. You will have to face and defeat all manner of creatures, from aggressive animals to bloodthirsty orcs, mindless undead to magical creations. When you feel ready and brave enough, you can pursue the great quest creatures of the world in an attempt to save lives and earn recognition. Build your character as you attempt to earn items, gain skills, and defeat creatures endangering the world.
Did that sound familiar to you guys? It didn't to me either, but this is the story of Legends of Novus, a tabletop fantasy adventure board game that's currently on Kickstarter, and tonight we're lucky enough to have on the creator mastermind behind this game. Is that correct? Is that how you fall in line with Legends of Novus, Wes?
Yeah, I created this game from start to its current state and had some great help from the lead artist, Andrea Butera, but all of the core concepts behind it have been created right from my home in Olds, Alberta.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. We really appreciate it, Wes.
Thanks. Great to be here.
No problem. Now, before we jump into everything that's great about your game, let's rewind a little bit. How did you get into playing tabletop board games, Wes?
Well, my first job was when I was 16. I worked just for $1 an hour as a clerk at a comic store, as a chance for work experience. And at that comic store, Magic the Gathering was really starting to grow. If you age yourself in Magic years, I was born in the age of Ice Age, and I've been playing it ever since, kind of off and on. Not so much now as I used to, but that's what really broke me into gaming, between that and the Dungeons and Dragons I used to play when I was a teenager. But I've enjoyed fantasy all my life. I've enjoyed board games all my life. I've even made all kinds of little board games with my children as they were growing up. I would make games about Smurfs, or we'd make games about comic heroes from Marvel, or even made a Magic version of Star Wars and a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles board game. Just always been part of my life to create little board games to play with the family. And it wasn't until last year that I decided to take that hobby into the next level and try to become more part of the board gaming world, I guess you could say.
Well, there you go. Yeah, awesome. And speaking of Legends of Novus, what can you tell us about that game?
Well, Legends of Novus is an adventure game that's not quite like some of the fantasy-themed games that you might see right now. The most popular ones that you see right now involve tons of miniatures and involve extensive campaigns. Legends of Novus is a adventure board game where just you can play it alone, or you can play it with up to 5 people, and you can just get through an entire adventure, from becoming an entry-level hero to becoming an epic warrior in a span of 60 to 90 minutes, and just really get a feel for a streamlined version of Dungeons and Dragons, or any type of adventure board game. So the intent was to bring an experience to the table that was short and sweet and epic at the same time.
Cool. When you say short and sweet, like how long does it take to play Legends of Novus usually?
If you play a solo game and you're familiar with the locations and the rules, you can get through one of those gameplay sessions in 30 minutes. If you're playing with 2 to 3 players, and again, all games take a bit of a learning curve, but once you've got that learning curve figured out, you can get through a game in a good hour. And when you're comparing that to D&D or Gloomhaven or some of those other major campaign type of games, it's very short in comparison to those.
Awesome. Now, per se, me and you sat down to play Legends of Novus. What's my turn going to look like?
Your turn is going to look like it's broken down into 3 separate sections. So there's a preparation phase. So when you're doing that, you're putting on equipment that you might want, that you've recently found. You might be buying a new card. You might use an adventure card that you have in your hand. So it's a way to prepare yourself for the next phase, which is your adventure phase. That adventure phase allows you to either explore a location that you're currently in. So if you've traveled to a city or you've traveled to the caves or wherever you've traveled to, it gives you can explore that turn, or you can keep traveling every turn. You can keep roaming around the world. And in either of those phases, there could be a chance of an encounter or earning new equipment or earning experience to further your game. And then the third phase is a recovery phase where you can play additional cards that you might have found during your adventure phase, as well as gain experience and sell stuff if you're in a city. So those are the three main phases of the game, and an average turn might take anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes maximum.
Okay, and you said it's not campaign based, so it's like if we were comparing it to a role playing game, it'd be like a one and done. Is that right?
Like Dungeons and Dragons, you're taking on the role of a character. In Legends of Novus, you are taking on the role of a character, but you don't necessarily have to role play it. I mean, you're welcome to have fun at the table and talk about how you're traveling across the world to slay a demon and put your own backstory on it, but that's not a requirement of the game. The purpose of the game is to give you that experience without having to create extensive backstories. There is a huge backstory to the world and to the characters that I will have on the website, and we're actually creating an art book that goes into greater depth for those that enjoy that, really want to be immersed in the world. There's a ton of knowledge to be had. But to play the game, you can play it to start to finish without knowing anything about the characters of the world.
Awesome. And how do I go about winning? What's the purpose with it, Wes?
Yeah, so the victory condition to Legends of Novus for the main game, which is the 2 to 5 player kind of race to become a legend game, your goal is to earn 25 experience points and defeat one of the quest creatures, which is one of the major boss creatures of the game, or have 2 completed quest event cards, which you can find at the adventure deck. So you've got to basically, you're proving yourself to the world that you are a legend to be recognized, both through experience and through acts of greatness. So the first player that gets 25 experience and has defeated a quest creature or earned 2 quest events wins the game.
Okay, and it's an asymmetrical play. Like it looks like they're different characters, or they all have different things they can do, or they all play the same.
No, you're right. There's 5 different characters, and they all have different skills and statistics. So each character will have a base combat skill, and then they're all going to have a static ability, which is always there. And then they're going to each have a special ability, which they can activate at their discretion. So there's some strategy involved for each character on when you're going to use your different activated abilities or how you're going to travel to best benefit your particular character. And each of those characters has a bit of balance to them and how those were figured out. And then each character.
Okay, and does the game end when somebody gets to that? You said 25 victory points?
Yeah, the game comes to an end when somebody has 25 experience points and has defeated a quest creature. But there is an option for each character to kind of level up and advance into a dual class character once they hit 10 experience. So you see a dynamic change in the game around the 15 to 20 minute point when players really get to that point where they can evolve into a more epic character.
So how does that look? Is everybody got a character sheet or a certain card that tells them what they happen that after they get the 10 experience points?
Yeah, so each player will have a character board, and one of the visual aspects of the game is that every piece of equipment you get and every skill you get and your base class all get presented in card format on this board. So at any given time, you can look at your board or anybody else's and see exactly what they have to offer. There's no pen and pencil or writing down of different stats. It's all visual through cards. And so if you upgrade your class, you're going to exchange your current class. So if I was a fighter becoming a paladin, I would take off my fighter class card and replace it with the perfect paladin card, for example. And each base class can advance into 4 different advanced classes because they can pair up with any other class that's available.
Okay, awesome. And is it somewhat co-op, like a role-playing game, or is it everybody for themselves?
So the game is designed as a race to become the first Legend of Novus for the 2 to 5 player version, which means you're not really out to hurt your opponent, but you do want to make sure you get to the end of the game first. There's only 2 or 3 cards that actually have a kind of a take that mechanism where you might destroy something from them or interrupt their gameplay, but really it's more about finding your own way to win before your opponent. And then there's another option for co-op play for 2 players versus 2 other players. So it's a team play strategy. And then the last version is solo play where you just go around and do things on your own. And in that particular mode, there's a clock that you're up against. You have to defeat 3 of those quest creatures before 25 turns come to an end.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, because we don't really care for co-ops in our family as much. I know some people do, but that's awesome. So it's not necessarily take that, but a race for the victory points or whatnot. It doesn't look like this is your first run on Kickstarter, or I mean your first game on Kickstarter. Is that right?
Yeah, look, I thought it was important for me to understand what it meant to run a campaign from start to finish with a small game before going deep into this more expensive tabletop board game. So I ran a game called Duel of the Dragons back in October or September to October. It was just a 2 week campaign and had about 82 backers, and that was successfully funded, and everybody got their cards by the end of December. So it was just a quick run. It was a fun game, but it's a lot easier to design a 49 card 2 player game than it is to design this massive tabletop 5 player game, for example, or 2 to 5 player game.
Okay, that makes sense. So during your first run with your Duel of the Dragons, what did you learn about Kickstarter and whatnot?
I learned how the kind of some of the dialogue and timelines work with backers are. I learned a lot more about shipping than I'd studied about shipping, but I learned a lot more about it as I went through the process. Learned about the timelines it takes for Kickstarter to reimburse you, and then you to pay the manufacturer, and the manufacturer to ship the game, and just really learned a lot about start to finish timelines and process, as well as being engaged with the community and trying to figure out what when is the right time to share your campaign? When is it considered spam? You've got to balance that line between trying to become one with the community and just overdoing it and getting a little aggressive with your advertising.
Yeah, I wondered that because some people I see updates every day on their Kickstarter campaigns and some not so many. Is there a fine balance, or I guess it depends on the game, or
Yeah, it really does depend on the game. I mean, with Duel of the Dragons, I think I sent an update out every couple of days. But with Legends of Novus, I've taken on a different strategy because it's a simple game once you get used to it, but there's a lot to understand about it. And what I've been using is I've done a daily update as a way to train and educate anybody who's interested in the game, a different part of the game each day. So it's a 2 minute blurb about what happened today on the Kickstarter, and then anywhere from 3 to 5 minute training or talking session about some aspect of the game, whether it's advanced classes or characters or the map or the creatures. Just trying to share as much as I can about the world, because there's only so much you can throw on one campaign page.
well, there you go. That's awesome. So, is that found in both the updates as well as the Kickstarter daily vlog, or how do people go about finding out what's been posted thus far?
So anybody who looks at the campaign page, there's a couple small lines of text that will show every video update, and it's also on my YouTube channel. So the people that have backed it get the daily update via email. Anybody who looks at the campaign page can click a link on the daily update list, and anybody that knows me on YouTube can find it on there as well.
Well, there you go. Awesome. Did you see a lot of crossover between backers of Duels of the Dragon that come over to back Legends of Novus?
I think there's about a 50% transfer. I recognize quite a few of the names. I haven't compared it name to name for each one. Probably something I should look at doing, because it'd be nice to see who is enjoying both of the games. But I'd say at least half, just based on the names that I recognized in the backer list.
Now, how did you know when Legends of Novus was ready to come to Kickstarter?
I've been playing Legends of Novus since February last year, when I discovered a little game called Munchkin, and found that wasn't a game I wanted to play, but it was a concept of a game I wanted to create, and that's what opened my eyes into the hobby gaming industry to begin with, is just trying to create a game that I thought didn't exist yet. And then kind of going back to your question, Legends of Novus I knew wouldn't be ready until it got play tested by multiple people in multiple areas of the world instead of just mine. So I played it on Tabletop Simulator with a person in London, for example. Had it printed and played in the US, and then played with a local group here in the Calgary area, just trying to get it a lot more developed than Duel of the Dragons was. And it also required a nice artistic touch to it. So 6 months ago, the gameplay was there, but the art wasn't. But now we're at a level where there's enough art and graphic design visually presentable that people can see that it will be a beautiful game once it's produced. And that's, again, thanks to that lead artist Andrea.
Yeah, I like the art. It pops and stands out as a pretty cool art from what I can see.
Yeah, and all the landscape art, he's got someone else that he went to art school with, and Boris Turano did the world map art as well as any of the location art that you'll see in the final game.
Now, when it comes to Legends of Novus, what makes your game pop as one my audience should go check out? And then if they like what they see, back it on Kickstarter.
The art is probably the biggest thing that catches your eye to begin with. Just seeing that almost that professional look, the same type of art you'd see on a Magic card or you'd see in those high-profile fantasy games out there. So it's definitely on par with any of the leading fantasy art that's out there. I think that's the first thing that makes it pop. The second thing is that it's not a mini heavy campaign and it's not a story heavy campaign. So you don't have to. It might only take you about 3 to 5 minutes to set up the game, whereas some of those other games can take 10 to 15 minutes just to get all your figures in the right spot. And then thirdly, the fact that you can finish a game start to finish in that shorter time frame without worrying about picking up where you left off last time or trying to store things in a certain way to make sure that you're ready for the next campaign. Just that start to finish fun, epic experience you can do in a one shot.
Okay, awesome. And what it looks like we need about another 300 backers or so to at the normal pledge level to get to funded. Is that correct?
Yeah, ideally we were looking at a minimum order quantity of 500 of the base units. Now, part of that could be from Kickstarter, and then if there is still not enough backers to hit that 500 unit, but there's enough funding, then the additional games would be sold in a different way. But ideally, I would like at least 500 backers for the base game, and that makes it much more cost effective for myself and the company to produce, which makes it easier for us to distribute to all these wonderful backers that are interested in the game. And then there's always the potential in the future for expansions and utilizing that base game model as a reprint down the road.
Awesome. And have you done anything during the lull? Because usually they tease, well, not necessarily tease, but there's a lull between the first 48 hours and the last 48 hours of any campaign, it seems like.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And if the game wasn't so big and I knew there wasn't so much to do to talk about it, I probably would have made it another 2-week campaign. But there's a couple things that have been happening kind of behind the scenes that I wanted to make sure we had the full 30 days for this one. Part of that was some of the prototypes got delayed in shipping thanks to the Canada Post mailing system. We were going through a strike, so I had to make sure there was enough time for people that got the game to actually play the game. There were some people out there last minute that decided they wanted to try the print and play and give some feedback, so I wanted to give time for them to show what they had to do. And then, so that was part of the reason, but also giving me time as we grew in popularity on Kickstarter, more podcasters or reviewers or bloggers take more interest and actually want to talk about your game. Whereas if you try to push it before you're even launched, there's many people out there that won't recognize you as a first-time producer or manufacturer if you don't have anything on a history to show for it. So because of those things, it's been getting a bit more interest lately. And then the last part was the Gamma trade show. I have a contact who's taking a demo of the game and some info sheets to that trade show that starts on Monday, and that could be a huge influencer on where this campaign goes next week.
Okay, yeah, hopefully that'll help. And have all the reviews come in yet, or are we still waiting on some?
The majority of the reviews have come in. You'll see that there's reviews from Overboard Games, who did a Tabletop Simulator version. We're Not Wizards is actually posting their review and discussion later today. Had a review done by Logan Chops Reviews. He's done quite a few reviews across the gaming industry. Early on, the prototypes were reviewed by a group called Gamesmiths Playtesters, and they had a lot of great things to say about it. Some feedback to improve, of course, which was done, but also a lot of great things about the initial concept. And then you'll see some examples on the Kickstarter page of people that have playtested the version with me or playtested it when they've received their copy. You'll see those on the campaign page as well. So like any game, there were some quirks to work out, and those were dealt with, and the game is now, to me, what I want it to be and what plays best with the players.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Now, with We're Not Wizards, that's one of my favorite podcasts out there, and they usually don't review games necessarily. He's always teasing and saying how difficult it is and whatnot. How did you convince him to jump on to try out Legends of Novus?
Well, sometimes it just means sending out a nice email or a comment, or making sure that you let them know that you've enjoyed their work so far. So just sent out a question to him one day after listening to a few of his podcasts, just a shout out to say, hey, Richard, I like what you're doing. Your podcast presents a lot of great information. Did you have any interest in trying out a new game that I've designed? I'll send you the prototype free of charge, and you just give it a try and let me know what you think. And that's kind of where I left it. And surprisingly enough, he responded back shortly thereafter to let me know he'd be willing to give it a whirl. And the game took, I think, about 4 weeks to actually get to him from the time I mailed it. And we hadn't even decided if a podcast was going to happen until after he had the chance to play the game. And because he had liked what he played and enjoyed the concept of it, he was willing to bring me onto a show as well. So that was a great moment and a chance to show people that Legends of Novus is out there.
Well, there you go. And it sounds like you did an interview with him. I'm guessing that'll be out before this episode comes out on Saturday, but that's supposed to drop pretty soon here too.
Yeah, that should be hopefully by the end of today, if not by tomorrow.
Oh, okay, awesome. So I'll look forward to listening to that, see what, and hopefully that'll drum up some interest as well. But yeah, like I said, looking at the art, and it sounds like it's just an awesome game, a different play than other games out there. So that's pretty cool.
Really trying to sell that part of it. That there's something different about it. It's just not another humdrum fantasy game. There are aspects of it that you wouldn't have seen in other games yet, or not to the. It's got a simplicity to it, but also a strategy and complexity to it, and the two kind of balance out into a shorter time game.
Awesome. And you talked about it being on Tabletop Simulator, or some way that they can try it before they back it. Is that right?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that people are going to put money on something they actually know that they want. So if anybody has the Tabletop Simulator app on Steam, I think it's about $20 US to get that app. You can play all kinds of board games on there. And so every single card file and the rules and the location guide, it's all on there for people that want to test it out and play it, whether they want to play solo mode or play with 3 or 4 people. I mean, Tabletop Simulator is a cool way to just immerse yourself in the board game digitally, but knowing that most people want that tangible physical game board. So I don't want to charge anybody for a digital version when the whole idea is to get this game on a table with your friends.
Okay, awesome. And if you get me all the links, I'll make sure I leave them in the show notes so people can go and try it or check out the campaign page and see if it's something that they're interested in, if they like it. They can go ahead and back it. It looks like it'll be on Kickstarter for a couple more weeks. It looks like almost a couple more weeks, through Thursday, the 21st of March.
Yeah, that's the planned end date. And like you said, we're sitting at 38% funding right now. And it kind of goes up and down. People change their minds when they see new stuff come out, or they may want to back a different project, or maybe they realize that they wanted a game with minis and it doesn't come with minis. But I just want to make sure everybody that does back the game knows that what it's all about. So that's why there's all kinds of playthroughs that are on my YouTube channel. That's why I talk about it in daily videos. I don't want there to be any surprises for the people that back the game.
Yeah, for sure, most definitely. When it came to your Duels of the Dragon, during the last 48 hours, did you see an influx, or how did that look? This being the first campaign, the other one was.
Yeah, Duel of the Dragons got about 50% of its funding in the last 72 hours. So it certainly followed that trend that Kickstarter tends to have, where you have the initial backers, which tends to be your followers, plus those that regularly check the Tuesday updates. And then anything that happens between that first 48 hours and the last 48 hours is anything you can do to advertise or talk about it on podcasts, or get it out through email. And that's what I found is the toughest part, is just getting people to the site and seeing if they have interest. And then we're now on the campaign, there's about 1,600 people that are following it, which means they press that little heart button or bookmark button. And that means that 48 hours before the Kickstarter ends, they'll get a reminder to see if they want to take that plunge or not, if it turns out to be a game for them.
Well, there you go. Awesome. Did you have that access to that data during the Duels of the Dragon?
I'd seen the trends because I'd followed Facebook groups about Kickstarter and done some research through Stonemeyer Games and some other websites. So I knew to expect that trend, and I'm expecting that now. The tough part about now is that I didn't have anywhere near this number of followers on Duel of the Dragons. Duel of the Dragons had about 120 followers, and of that, maybe about 10% converted. So I'm looking at the data right now, 1,500 followers. If 10% of those converted, that's still only 150 backers. So the game really still needs a bit of a boost to gain enough attention to get to that 500 mark. So really hoping the Gamma trade show helps out with that. Hoping having conversations with you and some of those other wonderful podcasters out there like Richard Bliss and Richard Simpson. Hoping those help. And there's a few other websites that might blog or post about the game that can always attract some interest.
Yeah, speaking of Richard Bliss's podcast, I listened to that, and then they had a follow-up to that with a fan of his show that came on and offered some suggestions. Did you make any of those changes that he'd offered on there?
Yeah, he'd interviewed a gentleman named Brian R. I can't remember his last name, but Brian R. gave a couple of cool recommendations about moving up the why back this part, just because fantasy is so tropey and so commonplace that you want to have that higher up on the page. So I brought that up top. He recommended having a clearer idea of how do you win the game, because some of these games traditionally are long in campaign, and I didn't have that emphasized enough. So I put a new image onto the page that really shouted out that, when you get 25 experience and you beat the quest creature, the game ends. Because prior to that, it wasn't clear unless you read the rulebook, how do you win the game. So that was a couple of good points of advice there that I took from him. And Richard commented that I had to take the word video game out of any phrasing because people may misinterpret the game as a video game at first glance if you throw that within your context. So I got some good word of advice on there. And then there was some feedback that came through the commentary as well.
So people go ahead and they take a chance and back Legends of Novus, and it funds on Kickstarter successfully. So you don't overpromise and underdeliver. When would they anticipate getting their copy so they can try to become the legend in Novus?
So first thing that would happen post Kickstarter is, should we hit our funding, then the green light goes to the artist to say, hey, you've done all the great art so far. Let's finish up and work through the remaining creature cards that need their art, because some of the art is placed in art right now just for the demos, and finish up the art on the reward cards, because a lot of it is placeholder, just photos that are from free images on the internet. All that gets replaced with the fantastic art that Andrea does to give that game that authentic look to it. So that will take probably somewhere in the vicinity of 2 to 3 months. From there, it goes right, all those files get uploaded into my current card files. And during that time, I'll be making sure that there's no errors in the rulebook or on the cards themselves. And then it goes to the manufacturer. They've got a time frame already set aside that should the game fund, they'll make sure that that is set for the time frame that we'd agreed on to. And then it would ship from China probably by the end of August, and it takes you have to expect about 2 months for that, and that's why the timeline on the Kickstarter is for December 2019.
Oh, okay, so not too shabby. That's awesome. So like I said, if you get the links to me and stuff, I'll go ahead and make sure I leave those all in the show notes. So anybody listening that likes what they've heard, and they can go ahead and definitely check out Legends of Novus, a tabletop fantasy adventure board game that's currently on Kickstarter. And if they like what they see, go ahead and back it and show your support to Wes and Fundamental Games so they can keep coming out with other stuff. Minus coming there to your hometown to stalk you, how would people keep up with you, Wes?
Yeah, I hope I don't get any stalkers. I mean, you can stalk me on the internet all you like. I've got all kinds of ways you can find me there. The first way is, if you're interested in the game and want to find me, just hit www.legendsofnovus.com, and you'll find links to my Facebook group. You'll find links to my email and all that on the bottom of that page. Plus, you'll see all the awesome art that's already a part of this game. And again, you can reach me on Instagram, Fundamental Games. You can reach me on Twitter, Wes Woodbury, and I'll give you all those links if you like.
Yeah, for sure. Most definitely. So I can leave them in the show notes. So awesome. And speaking of what you might have coming up next, I know right now we're focused on getting Legends of Novus funded and successfully delivered and everything like that. But is there anything in your back pocket that you might be working on in the future in case somebody's listening to this down on the road later on down the road?
Well, that's the cool thing about this hobby is your mind can't stop thinking about new ideas and new games. And I watch all these different Facebooks, and I'm following all these different Kickstarters, and you can't help but think of new ideas. I'm trying to keep those contained a bit. I want my focus to be on Legends of Novus for the next 6 to 8 months. But recently I did put Duel of the Dragons on drive-through cards. It's available for sale. So I'll probably promote that a little bit. It doesn't take a lot of energy because I don't have to put any new ideas and thought into it. It's more just about sharing a game that already exists. And then the third thing that would be in the back burner is the prototype I have of a game called Spellbooked. And that game is kind of a dueling 2 to 5 player card drafting battling system. And it's got some unique aspects to it. So I'm working on that or have in the background, but really the whole focus is on Novus for 6 months.
Okay, most definitely. So, like we said before, if you like what you've heard and you go ahead and check out the campaign page, let's go ahead and show it a little bit of support and help get Legends of Novus funded so it can become a reality. But yeah, we don't want to keep you all day, Wes, but we really appreciate you coming on Getting Geeky with Game Relief with us to talk all about Legends of Novus that'll be on Kickstarter for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I thank you very much as well, Blake. You've really been involved in the community. I see your name out there quite often, and you and I have had a few chats online about how the game's been going. So thank you for following the campaign and being willing to take me on.
No problem at all. I hope it's successful, and you listeners, if you're still listening, hopefully you are, you can go ahead and help it become successful. Every vote or back helps, even at $1. Is that right, Wes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yeah, we'll let you go, but we really appreciate it once again, Wes.
Yep, thank you.
Man, that was exciting to chat with Wes. I really love what I've heard. I heard him talking to Richard from We're Not Wizards twice. Not because he was on the show twice, just because I like Richard's show and had forgotten about it. I'm really hoping his campaign makes it across the finish line. Let's show him how powerful Getting Geeky with Game Relief fans can be. If you like what you heard, go check out his Kickstarter page and back it. Even if it's just for $1. That way, all your followers will get an email. They'll back it, and then their followers will do the likewise. If you love what you see, why not add it to your collection of Kickstarter games by backing the full game? Well, there's my spiel. What's on Kickstarter? Hit it, Princess Leaf.
What is this place? What is it doing here in the Leaves computer? Oh, it's Kickstarter Corner with the Leaves.
You like Monopoly, but always thought the buildings were small? I can't really blame you, they are. Have you ever played games like Takedo, where you're all going on the same direction on a one-way track? Well, we've got it, and Lady Leaf likes it, otherwise it would never have made it to our shelf. Well, what if I told you there was a game like this with taller buildings, where you're going down that one-way track? Well, hold on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen. There is. It's High Rise, a game of construction and corruption for 1 to 4 players. High Rise is a city building strategy board game with a bit of corruption from the designer of The Networks, Wordsy, and Bad Medicine. In the game, you and your opponents are constructing skyscrapers in a somewhat reputable city. You'll move around the board on a one-way track, choosing any unoccupied space ahead of you and doing its action, and waiting for everyone to pass you until you take your next action. They're over halfway to their funding goal, and it'll be on Kickstarter through Monday the 25th of March. So back it today, and look out for an interview from us here at Getting Geeky with Game Relief. Just before I got sick last week, I was able to get to Gaming Group, and seeing how Wizard Leaf and I were the only ones there, we got to pick the games to play, thanks to our awesome game group leader, Chris from Casual Game Revolution. I picked Valeria Card Kingdoms. It was awesome. We love Machi Coral, but I'm thinking for older ones, this is my new favorite. It's a tableau building game. It's set in the fantasy realm. You get to kill monsters, so yeah. Guess what? They have an expansion pack on Kickstarter currently. That's right, Valeria Card Kingdoms Crimson Seas. Sell to lands beyond the borders of Valeria in Crimson Seas, the third full expansion to Valeria Card Kingdoms. But why should they stop there? I guess you're thinking just like them, because they are producing 3 products in this Kickstarter campaign. Crimson Seas, an expansion to Valeria Card Kingdoms, Ward Towers, Valeria Card Kingdom expansion pack, and Corsairs of Valeria, a standalone dice game. So go check out the campaign and back it. Plus, make sure you subscribe to Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf on your favorite podcast catcher so you don't miss mine and Wizard Leaf's review of the base game when it comes out. Check out their campaign and back it before Tuesday the 26th of March. You really like fuzzy and cute? You like cartoons? You like cats but are allergic? Or just plain like cats and cartoons? What if I told you that you didn't have to be glued to an electronic screen in order to get your fix, so to say? Well, that's exactly what I'm telling you. Combine your love of these things with your love of gaming, and you've got Fuzzy Mage Dice. It's a card game for 2 to 6 players. Play as fuzzy mages with unique abilities, fighting to become the most magical fuzzy mage ever. They fund it in 6 hours. I have it on good authority that they'll be doing a giveaway with the Giveaway Geek soonish. And by being subscribed to our podcast, which I know you are, that'll give you an extra entry just by entering. So, be on the lookout for that. Either way, check out Fuzzy Mage Fight on Kickstarter before Wednesday the 27th of March. If it's up your alley, back it as well. It's my least favorite time and your least favorite time. Time for us to get on with our lives, you to get on with yours. But in the meantime, I hope you'll get geeky, stay geeky, and bring others into the geek fold by sharing this podcast with them. Gamer Leaf out.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.